Magandang araw, ako po si Sir Ariel, ang ALS lover ng Edtech Unit. Narito po ako para sa isang napakagandang balita at upang magpaalala na ang kinabukasan ay mas gaganda at uunlad kung ang lahat ay patuloy na mag-aaral. Sa edukasyon sa ating bansa, tiyak na walang maiiwanan sa pag-abot ng mga pangarap. Kaya naman ang Department of Education ICT's Educational Technology Unit at Alternative Learning System Task Force ay nagtutulungan sa pagkakaroon ng ALS Tech Empowerment Program upang maihatid ang excellent quality education sa ating mga ALS learner and teachers. To easily deliver the lessons from the modules and other references, we will provide tablet PC as part of the DepEd computerization program to all ALS teachers and orientation on the use of these packages. To deepen the pedagogical use of information and communications and technology in delivering instructions, there are training workshops on the use and curation of open educational resources or OER, Google and Microsoft productivity tools, creation of video lessons using PowerPoint presentations and KineMaster, and on ebook or e-magazine development. To create an avenue for remedial lessons that is open to all learners, teachers, and parents, we will have the ETUlay free online tutorial and mobile ETUlay, where we will visit remote schools to feature the best practices of our ALS teachers and learners. Sa mga out-of-school youth and adult, laging tatandaan na may pag-asa upang makapagpatuloy sa pag-aaral. May ALS para sa inyo. Ang edukasyon ay para sa lahat. Para sa bata, para sa bayan, para sa guro. Sulong Edukalidad.
Magandang araw, Sir Wilbur po, at your service. Narito ang ETUlay upang gabayan ka sa inyong pag-aaral upang lubos na maunawaan ang iba't ibang paksa o subject. Ang ETUlay ay isang free online tutorial class na pinangungunahan ng ICT's Educational Technology Unit sa pamumuno ni Undersecretary Elaine Del B. Pascua. Ang programang ito ay hindi lamang para sa mga bata, kundi ito rin ay magsisilbing gabay sa mga magulang at mga guro kung paano nila ituturo o gagabayan sa bawat asignatura ang kanilang mga anak o mga estudyante. Sa kasalukuyan, ang self-learning module mula sa rehiyon ng Calabarzon at kilala sa tawag na pivot ang ginagamit sa ating ETUlay online class. Kaya ano pang hinihintay ninyo? Ihanda na ang inyong mga ballpen o lapis, papel o kwaderno at samahan kaming itulay ang pagkatuto para sa bawat batang Pilipino. Sama-sama tayong magtutulungan para malampasan ang mga hamon sa panahong ito. Halina't matuto kasama ang inyong online tutor sa oras na ito.
Ayan po, good afternoon po ETUlay learners at sa ating pong DepEd Online TV admin and staff, kasama na po ang Educational Technology Unit ng DepEd Online and all those who are behind the success of this DepEd ETUlay program. Magandang hapon po sa inyo, dear parents and learners of 21st century literature from the Philippines and from the world. Ako po ang inyong tutor Dick sa hapong ito. Shout out po sa lahat po na nanonood po sa atin ngayon, ang ating mga kaguruan, ang ating mga magulang, and of course our senior high school learners of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. So for our tutorial today, ito po ang ating week 2 ng ating quarter 3, 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. So today, ang focus po natin, we're going to have the conventional and 21st century genres. Ayan po. Shoutout po kaila, ang dami-dami. Sige po, babatiin ko po lahat ng dito. Maya-maya lang po. So let us move on to our tutorial. For this week's tutorial po, there are 3 objectives at the end of this tutorial. I hope you will be able to, number 1, differentiate the 21st century literary genres, ayan po, and the ones from the original genres. If you remember our week 1, nakafocus po ito sa ating historical context of our Philippine literature. Okay? And then number 2, we do our best to enumerate the elements, structures, and traditions of each genre. And of course, last but not the least, although it's a little bit challenging, is to try our best to appreciate the unique features of each genre. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so let us begin with poetry. So our traditional or our conventional literature is basically made up of 4 types. Good afternoon po, Sir Wax from Olongo po. Mr. Manansala po from, and of course, Mary Eresa from Olongo po City. Good afternoon po sa inyo. And I've seen somebody from the different parts of the Philippines. Ang dami po pala nila. Good afternoon po sa inyo lahat. Okay, we begin with poetry po. In poetry, these are imaginative. This involves imaginative awareness of experience. Ayan, imagination. Imaginatively being aware of our experiences as human beings. It involves sound and rhythmic language. And of course, one of the main objectives of poetry would be to evoke emotional responses from its readers. And it's always presented in meter and in rhyme. Yan po ang ating first conventional literature. Kung wala po tayong poetry, meron po tayong, kasunod ay drama. Okay, so if we have poetry, we also have drama. It's in either prose or verse form. Prose would be the common flow of language, okay? While in verse form, more of the poetic side, okay? If we talk about the verse form. Drama also involves dialogue, okay? Or if without words, it is in the form of pantomime, okay? Drama is intended to be acted on a stage. Or for us, it could be on screen. Ayan po, baka malimutan po natin yung drama in the form of TV and movies. And usually the conventional drama could be in a form of a play or stage play. And then if we're not having poetry and drama, we also have stories, okay, in the form of fiction. Okay, this involves the short story, the novel. Ayan po tayo. So this piece of literature, this literary genre is created from the imagination, but it may be based on a true story or human situation or life situation. Yan po. Now, when we talk about fiction, we have novel, novella, novelette, and short story. Ano pong pinagkaiba ng 1, 2, 3, 4 na yan? Basically, the length. Pinakamahaba pang novel, pinakamaikli, si short story. And also involved would be the 4th one, non-fiction, or known as the creative non-fiction. Basically, this is based on facts and the author's opinion about a subject, more aiming to inform and sometimes to persuade. Aside from entertaining, and this might include biographies, articles from textbooks, magazines, and newspapers. Dito niyo po sila mababasa commonly. So, doon po sa ating SLM, kung nakahanda po ang inyong mga self-learning modules from Pibot, Calabarzon, 4A, makikita niyo po itong part na to. What's new? Sabi rito, you look for the conventional literary genres in the puzzle. So, this is a form of word search. And on a separate sheet of paper, answer the questions that follow. Kung makikita niyo po ito po ay in a form of word search. At ang hahanapin po natin dito, we're going to look for the 4 conventional literary genres which we had a while ago. So, dito po sa part na to, kung ang una niyong nakita ay ito. Yan. Oh, sorry. Yan. We have the word drama here. Yan. Kung nakita niyo po siya, tama po kayo. And katabi lang po niya would be the word fiction. Andiyan po siya. Although, meron po siyang naulit na fiction dito. Ayan. Para lang po yan. Nasagot na tama. Fiction. Alright. At where are the other words? Meron po tayong dalawang mahanap dito. We have the creative nonfiction or the nonfiction at the bottom. Ayan po. And if you're asking where poetry is, medyo humirap siya ng konti. Poetry is diagonally written here. Ayan po siya. Ayan. Now, for question number 2, what are their unique features? Babalikan lang po natin yung ating kanina. So, poetry, ito po yung kanyang mga unique features. There's emotional response, sound and rhythmic language, and meter rhyme, while drama could be either in prose or verse, uses dialogue and pantomime, intended to be acted on stage or it's a play, and fiction, created from the imagination but may be based on a true story situation. Forms would be the most common forms would be the novel, novella, and short story. And we could also have the creative nonfiction, which basically are pieces based on facts and the author's opinion, just presented creatively in the form of biographies, articles from textbooks, magazines, and newspapers. So yun po ang magiging sagot is number 1 and number 2 natin. Okay, kung nasagutan po ninyo ng tama, salamat naman po. Shout out po kay Ma'am Mary Donato Holdes from the Division of Batanes Basco. Good afternoon po, ma'am. Okay, tuloy na po natin. First, let's have an analysis of what is 21st century literature. If you remember, week 1 po natin, we focus on the 4 conventional literature genres. We have the drama, poetry, and fiction and creative nonfiction. And we had a historical background of those. But for now, we'll be digging deeper to the 21st century literature. But what exactly is 21st century literature? No? This could be considered the new literary work created within the last decade. So from your timeline, so the question is, you could be talking about the 1980s, 1970s. So from a decade from that time period, that could be the part of the 21st century literature. Baka kasi magtanong po yung iba, how about yun lang ba ay sakop ngayon, yung timeline natin? So we can include the, from our point of view, we can include even in the 1980s, but to be exact, some considered it to be the 1980s para po sa ating 21st century literature. But focus na lang po tayo sa new literary work created within the last decade, 10 years. Okay? Okay, written by contemporary authors. Okay? They usually deal with current themes, issues, and reflects a technological culture. Yun po yung isa sa mga defining characteristics niya. Often breaks traditional writing rules. We are going to compare them to the conventional types of literature. Okay? And we have emerging genres like the IM, ayan po, kasama na po siya sa 21st century literature, the blog format books, the digifiction, doodle fiction, and graphic novels, which we're going to detailedly analyze a little later on. Who reads the 21st century literature? None other than our 21st century readers. But who are these? Most of them are our senior high school students nowadays, or all of those who grew up using technology as a primary learning tool. Ayan po, no? Sa mga katutulad ko pong, let's say, I'm quite a, ano ba ako? I was born in 1982. Sabi nila, millennial daw kami, no? So, kasama na rin kami siguro dito. O half-half, okay? And then, the 21st century readers are those who are capable of navigating and interpreting digital formats and media messages. Ayan po. Karamihan po ng mga learners natin ngayon, ganyan sila. And they possess literacy skills which include technological abilities such as keyboarding, galing po sila dyan, internet navigation, very much, interpretation of technological speech, speech po yan, ability to communicate and interpret coded language and decipher graphics. So yan po ang ating mga readers ng 21st century literature. Okay. Let's get back now to your SLM. Doon po sa ating activity 1, sabi po dyan, analyze the content of the text below and identify its literary genre. For our activity, nakalagay po sa SLMs natin, it is entitled Tristan Cafe. Sabi rito, no? So our objective is to analyze the content Ano kaya itong piece of literary piece na ito, no? And let's try our best to identify its literary genre. So let's read it first. Kristen Cafe says here, I'm letting you go, she said with the thought of making him the happiest. Yes, she loves him. Yes, her world crumbled. Yes, it broke her. Yes, she read the post. And at the bottom, I love her. Parang sumagot, ano? But I don't want her anymore. Ouch. He posts and not ready for a knock on his door, and I am letting you go. Yes, he loves her. Yes, he's confused. Yes, it broke him. Yes, he didn't think she'll find it. Sakit naman ito. All right, let's go back to the direction. What do you think is the literary genre of this particular piece entitled Tristan Cafe? I think this was posted in Facebook or Instagram. I'm not sure. Sige po. It could be, ano po? It could be a poem, pwede? Or it could be some sort of a novel. Tingnan po natin mabuti, or a short one, a short story. If you answer, yun po. Ito po basically ang pinaka-genre ng Tristan Cafe. It's considered to be flash fiction. Mr. Mastero Sheep, okay, may question po ba? Sige po, post lang po natin, sir, kung may question po tayo. So what is basically flash fiction? Ito po yung ating sagot po kanina doon sa ano po ang kanyang literary genre ng Tristan Cafe. So flash fiction, one of the emerging style of fiction these days, 21st century literature. A style of fictional literature of extreme brevity, sobrang iksi, no? Gaano siya ka-iksi? There's no widely accepted definition of the length and category. It could range from a word to 1,000. So, if you're familiar with the works of, locally muna po tayo, si Eros Atalia, one of the leading flash fiction writers of the Philippines, these days po. Yes po, yung may mga question po, pakipost po natin lamang ang ating mga question and I'll try to address them po. Ayan. From Miss Micaela Laxina Gutierrez. But, honestly, hindi po bago ang flash fiction. Long time ago, panahon po nila Ernest Hemingway and Margaret Atwood, uso na po ang tinatawag nating flash fiction. No? So, hindi na po siya bago. Nauuso lang po siya ngayon. Ito po. Si Ernest Hemingway po, the author of The Old Man and the Sea, at saka si Margaret Atwood, they had their own 6-word flash fiction before. So, Ernest Hemingway, I'm not sure if you have read this. Sabi rito, for sale, baby socks, never worn. No? Flash fictions, extreme brevity, sobrang ikli, but the story is already there. Dito po tayo sa ating flash fiction. Miss Micaela Laxino Gutierrez, nasa flash fiction na po tayo. In-answer po natin yung direction kanina ng Activity 1 sa inyong SLM. Yan. Anong uri ng literary genre si Tristan Cafe? Siya po ay considered to be flash fiction, style of extreme brevity. Sobrang ikli. It could be from a word or 1,000. Depende po sa style ng writer. Okay po. Salamat po at na-get. Hindi po siya bago, like what I said. Ernest Hemingway and Margaret Atwood had their own flash fiction before. Bago po sa ating contemporary period. Nasulat na po nila ito ni Ernest Hemingway, for sale, baby socks, never worn. I hope you get the story. It could be a story about a couple na nagkaroon ng anak. Pero somehow, hindi siya either the baby died. So, they're selling their baby socks. Okay, and kay Margaret Atwood naman, modern hugot story, long for him, got him, sorry for the word, shit. Okay, Margaret Atwood yan, ano? So, medyo may kurot ito, no? Itong medyo may sipa, itong kay Margaret Atwood. Long for him, ayun. And then got him shit. Okay, that is about flash fiction. It's emerging right now, but it's not new, something new. Okay, let's go to your SLM again. We have this activity 2, wherein there is the Venn diagram contrast and comparison. Okay, when we employ event diagram, sa gitna po, pinakagitna yung tatlong literary genre natin, what is their most common similarity? Yan po ang lalagay natin sa gitna ng Venn diagram. Tapos, dun po sa mga pangalawang level ng mga gitna, the next level of the middle, yun naman po ay similarity between text talk novel and blog, and then hyper poetry and blog, and then text talk novel and hyper poetry. Sa pinakagitna po yung kanilang pinaka-main similarity. And of course, yung differences po nila ay nasa kanilang kanilang outside circle. So, paano natin masasagutan to? Let's dig deeper to these three kinds of 21st century literary genres. Let's begin with text talk novels. Okay? Basically, a text talk novel is in the form of blog, email, or IM. No? Okay, stories told almost completely in dialogue. Okay, tandaan po niyo na, in dialogue, nag-uusap sila, simulating social network exchanges. Ayan. I have seen this. I think I happen to remember the very first text talk novel na nabasa ko po. It's a social network exchange between a varsity player and a cheerleader, kung natatandaan po natin to. No? Yan. Ang text talk novel, ilagay natin sa kanyang own circle, hindi po nakadugtong dun sa dalawa. Ito po, stories told almost completely in dialogue, stimulating social network exchanges. While blog, susulat po natin siya dun sa blog part, is also considered as a weblog, a website containing short articles called posts that are changed regularly. Some blogs are written by one person or others more than one. And this explains yung kanilang pong opinions in interest and experiences. Okay? If you familiar with Bob Ong, sabi ng mga experts sa mga blog ni Bob Ong, si Bob Ong daw po ay one author while others are claiming na si Bob Ong ay isang grupo ng mga author. We're not sure about that. So, sa mga magagaling na 21st century bloggers natin I consider si Mr. Bob Ong po. Okay, and hyper poetry naman po is digital poetry that uses links and hypertext markup. It can either involve set words, phrases, lines, etc. They are present in variable order, but sit on the page must ask just like a traditional poem po. Okay? Pinagkaiba lang po nila, meron po siyang links and hypertext markup, and this is online. Okay? This became popular during the 80s po. At medyo nag-level up na po siya ngayon ng panahon natin. Ano? Mas naging interactive na siya. Okay po, interactive na po yung ating hyper poetry. You can see the traditional poem, tapos pag in-link po niyo siya, it's usually online. Meron po siya mga links na pwedeng mag-add up doon po sa pag-intindi natin doon sa piece of poem. So that is hyper poetry for you guys. So pag balik po tayo dito, yung pinakagitna, ang pinaka-similarity ng tatlo would be they all employ the internet, or all of them could be an online form of literary genre. Ayan, makikita niyo po sila na nakapost. Yan, makikita niyo po sila sa internet. Just like, for example, in text talk novel, yan po ay in the form of social network. Same thing with hyper poetry and blog. They can be both found or read online. Makikita niyo sila. So yun ang pinaka-ano na. They employ the internet. They are found online. Ano naman pong pinagkaiba ni text talk novel at ni blog? Lagi po natin dito sa gitna. So both text talk novel and blog uses the online platform also as well, no? And hyper poetry, ganun din po. Online po ang kanilang format. And anong pinagkaiba nila? Ito po. Yung text talk novel, dialogue, simulating social network exchanges. Meron po silang palitan ng mga sagot. While weblog, ito po yung parang personal opinions nung author on a particular piece of literature. It is usually like that. Or it could be written by one person or different sets of people. And hyperpoetry, of course, is poetry only in the form of a poetry written online with the use of links and hypertext markups. Yan po. Okay, so ayan po, blog was entertainment network video. Okay po. Ano pong ibig sabihin, Miss Micaela Laxina Gutierrez? Are you trying to say na gumagamit po siya ng entertainment network video? Pwede po. It could be a review of an entertainment network video online. But the basic thing there is they're all online po. Yung tatlo po kanina, Miss Gutierrez. Yes po, online literary genre, Miss Mary Erenzon. You get a star po. Shout out po kay Miss Jeneline Apinado Caparo from DepEd Biliran. Hello po. Good afternoon po, ma'am. All right. Yes po. Yes. Salamat po, Miss Micaela Gutierrez. Let's proceed with your SLM again. This time on the part of the activity 3. Makikita niyo po ito. This time, it is focused on doodle fiction, manga, and graphic novel. Ayan, isa sa mga, ito po tatlong mga paborito ngayon ng mga 21st century readers natin and our students. Most of them are familiar with this one. Even from, I think most of them, all over the Philippines, most of them are familiar with these three. Okay, so in this activity, meron tayong organizer we're in. We're going to write down the differences in terms of structure, similarities, and terms of elements. So let us begin with doodle fiction. The first structure, yan po, ng genre na ito is, it's a literary presentation where the author incorporates doodle drawings. Yun po yung tatandaan niyo sa doodle fiction. The word doodle drawings, okay? And handwritten graphics in place of traditional font. Instead of the traditional text, makikita niyo po yung doodle drawing ang ginagamit. If you're not familiar with doodle drawing, hindi ko po alam kung nabasa niyo na to, but my youngest son, one of his favorite books would be this one, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Si Roderick, yan, ating pinakabida. Yun po yung doodle, yung drawing niya. Yan po ang tinatawag nating doodle. It's all usually in black and white and string-like graphics, very simple, but it the story is being enhanced, even if it is in a very simple presentation of the doodle drawing. It employs humorous elements. Yun po, nakakatawa lagi po itong kind of itong genre po na ito. It's called doodle fiction. And I think most of our senior high school students magagaling po sa doodling. Nauuso po ito ngayon, that they are able to create their own doodle. So, di po tayo magtataka teachers, baka one of these days, ang mga doodle fiction writers natin ay sarili nating mga estudyante. And the second one, again, very familiar po ang mga bata rito, the manga. All right. Manga is a Japanese word for comic books. So you think of comic books. Is comics a doodle fiction? Doodle fiction can be in form of comics, but yeah, mostly when you say doodle fiction, it's just basically black and white graphics, yung the traditional doodle. Very simple, parang stickman lang siya, if you're familiar with the stickman term. Yan po. While on the other hand, comics or manga, much more colorful, much more detailed. It is used in the English-speaking world as generic term for all comic books. Pag sa Japan, manga. Pag sa English-speaking world, comic books pong tawag. Ayan, At kasama na rin po din yung graphic novels published in Japan. Tinawag siyang manga pagdating po sa Japan. Ayan. Manga is considered an artistic and storytelling style. Artistic, it's full of colors, full of great graphics from each artist, and the storytelling style, makikita nyo talaga yung flow just like a particular comic book. If you are fans of comic books, yan, para po kayong nagbabasa ng comics, Japanese style. Ayan. The term Ameri manga na incorporate na po ito is sometimes used to refer to comics created by American artists in the manga style. But what basically is the difference between a manga and a comic or comic book po? Yung graphics po. I'm not a manga expert, but there are certain what we call graphical characteristics na mapapansin nyo. Ito manga lang ito. Yung thin faces, very quite thin build of the body. And then, of course, sparkling eyes. Yan, very typical of manga po yan. Unlike in comic books, almost close to real po ang manga. But, rather, comic books. But manga, meron silang sariling mata or ano, it's quite distinct when you see manga compared to comic books. Okay, sample po ng mga manga na literary in in nature, no? In-employ nila si Shakespeare, no? So how cool is Shakespeare now to be studied if it's in the form of manga? Ito po yung mga sample po by Adam Sexton and Kate Brown. We have Shakespeare's Hamlet in the form of manga and A Midsummer's Night's Dream. These are both plays by William Shakespeare. But how cool it is when it is in the form of manga. So mas patok po sa ating mga estudyante. And we also have the American Lit manga form, even the works of Mark Twain and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Yung ating pong The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and The Scarlet Letter. No, I love these classics, but I think they're cooler right now for our 21st century readers because they can be read in the form of manga. Ayan po. Now, the third one would be the graphic novel. What is graphic novel? It's a narrative work in which the story is conveyed in the reader, to the reader rather, using the comic form. So think about comic books and manga, but this one is in the length is novel. Okay? Anong pinagkaiba sa comic books? We can compare comic books to short stories. So maikli lang sila, but a comic book or a graphic novel rather is basically a long story in a form of comic books. Yun po yung graphic novel. So the term is employed in a broad manner, okay? Encompassing, it could even encompass non-fiction works and thematically linked short stories, ayan po, as well as fictional stories across a number of genres. Okay? Hindi po natin masyadong but a lot of 21st century readers po in the Philippines, they already know these examples of graphic novels. In the elementary, yung mga anak po natin sa elementary, meron na pong Claire and the Bakery Thief and the Babysitter's Club. Yan po. Full-length novels po yan. Full-length novels. Maganda. Very, very good po. Miss Gutierrez, nabasa na po pala nito mga to. Yan po. Middle schooler, so mga grade 7 to grade 9. Ayan po. Bone, Calamity Jack. Sa mga seryoso at mahilig sa fantasy. And those who are fans of Mary Shelley, ayan po, meron pong Frankenstein graphic novel and the Tolkien, the Hobbit graphic novel. Another flavor to the study of these literary classics. And since graphic novels are able to encompass also the non-fiction genre, ito po yung mga example, no? So, graphic novel based on the life of Harry Houdini, the Handcuffed King, and American-born Chinese. I think this is based on the true-to-life story of American immigrant, Chinese immigrant in the United States, American-born Chinese. All right. So balik po tayo dun sa sa ating activity. Ayan po. So similarities would be, we could write here in the similarities, they all employ, ano po ang pinaka similarities ng doodle fiction, manga, and graphic novel? Yan. Pwede po natin i-point out ang graphic representation. Ayan. They all employ graphic representation of the story. Okay? Although magkakaiba sila ng characteristics ng drawing and the way they are presented in the paper, but they all employ the graphic representation, artistically sketched. And of course, although simple lang ang doodle fiction, but still, graphic pa rin ang pagkaka-present po. And then, the words can become other word in other country. Ano pong ibig sabihin ni Ms. Gutierrez? Sige po. And then, doon po sa kanilang differences in terms of structure, doodle fiction, of course, employs doodle, while manga employs artistry and storytelling style. Yan po. And the graphics, of course, is quite different from doodle fiction. And this is more similar to manga and graphic novels are much more similar. I asked a reading from a great Mama Jusira and I wanted to wait until now. Yes po. Alright, good afternoon po, Miss Agrinet Feliswa. I'm not sure. Okay, sige. I think she's commenting something about her reading experiences. I'm not quite sure. Diba? So additional po sa ating, aside from these three, meron din po tayong, we also have the illustrated novel. Ayan po. What is the difference between a graphic novel and illustrated novel? Apo? Okay. Baka almost the same, but okay, generally 50% of the narrative is presented without words. Yung po ang basic difference between them. The reader must interpret the images in order to comprehend the complete story. Almost 50% own no words at all. The textual portions are presented in traditional form. It could be at the beginning or at the end. Some illustrated novels may contain no text at all. Ayan po yung sinasabi ko na. Illustrated novels span all genres. It could be drama, horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and everything. Sample po ng illustrated novels. If you have watched the movie Hugo, ito po yung kanyang pinagkuhanan, yung illustrated novel na The Invention of Hugo Cabret. I think it was a 2018 or 2019 movie. I'm not sure. Hugo po yung pamagat. I enjoyed the movie. No? So ito po yung kanyang pinagkuhaan, The Invention of Hugo Cabret. And Sean Tan's The Arrival. We also have digifiction. Very familiar po ito sa mga readers natin ngayon. Especially those who are able to avail these kinds of digifiction. So basically, what is digifiction? Digifiction is literary experience that combines three, ayan po, media. May tatlong medium po ito. We have the book, movie or video, and the internet website. In order to get the full story, students must engage in navigation, reading, and viewing in all three formats para mas intindihan po natin ang digifiction. No? Popular series includes the 39 Clues. Now, when I was teaching in the junior high, yung mga estudyante ko, they all have these 39 Clues. I'm not familiar with Skeleton Creek. Higher level na po yan. 39 Clues, paborito to ng mga bata. They can read the book, and each book comes with 6 clues. Kaya po tinawag na 39 clues. Although 39 clues siya ang kanilang book. But with 6 clues po yung, you can visit the website, create an account, play a game, yun po yung maganda rito, and unlock a clue. Okay? You can read more, try to solve the mystery along with the characters, and maganda po, they can also win prizes. 39 clues. Yan, makita niyo po sa National Bookstore ito. For senior high school, medyo mature yung content po nito. Level 26. Why? There's a warning in here sa mga gustong mag-discover po nito. There is a suggestion of it contains suggested rather than actual violence. It contains violence, not intended for young audiences. Film footage elements. It also employs film footages. Comparable po sila sa PG-13, so be careful with this one. Okay lang, enjoy it. Okay, balik po tayo sa SLM natin. No? There's a part here wherein you are being asked to create a post. Okay, pag successfully po nating nasagutan yung ating activity 3, balikan lang po natin ng konti. Ayan po, na-point out na po natin yung differences in terms of structure, similarities, and differences in terms of elements. We're going to create a blog post dito po sa part na to ng SLM ninyo. Ayan. In a form of a paragraph. Ayan, or a little bit of a short composition. Blog post. Ayan, balik tayo sa blog. Okay. This will now be the rubrics. If you're able to achieve these rubrics, this will now be your point. But how do you exactly write a blog? That's the question. Po, no? Medyo hindi po ito popular. It's becoming popular. Lalo po sa mga estudyante natin na mahilig sa social media. Pwede na pong i-consider na blog yon. They're expressing their opinions and thoughts on a certain subject there. But our part as teachers, pwede po natin itong i-guide sila in a paragraph form in a much more composed blog post. I don't have exactly an example of a blog post, but I have here a source, an online source that you can use, no? Even if you are a student or a teacher, when you are focusing on creating blog posts. If you're familiar with this website, it's called lithub.com. Yan, no? So, yan. For blogging, I suggest po na you go to this part, craft and criticism. Ayan. Example nga po ito. I have here example of a blog post. analyzing a literary piece by Garcia Marquez. This was written by Angus Fletcher. So he wrote a blog post on of analysis on the work of Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. Napakaganda po nito, no? Ang title po ng kanyang blog post ay Poetic Language and the Science of Rediscovery. No? This website is easily accessible by anybody. Sa mga malalakas pong internet sources, you can make use of this website po for your as one of your resources, online resources for 21st century literary genres. Ayan po, no? Any genre, conventional man ito. But if you're planning to have a blog post, pwede nyo pong gamitin tong source na to. No. So, we're almost, salamat po sa mga nanatili. Ayan, sa mga learners po natin, sa mga teachers and parents. I hope you picked up something and you'll be able now to answer your modules for week 2 of 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Let's have a recap. What have you learned so far? So, in this part of your module, there are 5 questions. Okay, number 1 is what are the conventional literary genres? Unang-una po, we have 4. We have poetry, drama, fiction, and creative nonfiction or nonfiction. Number 2, what are the common characteristics of conventional literary genres? Babalikan lang po natin yung kanina, no? Quick lang po. Ayan. Ayan po. Poetry, imaginative, awareness of experience. It has sound and rhythmic language. Evokes emotional response, meter, and rhyme. Yan po sa poetry. Drama, prose or verse form. It contains dialogue or it can be without dialogue in the form of pantomime, intended to be acted on stage, or it could be a play. Fiction created from the imagination but can be based on true story, situation novella, novel, novelette, and short story. Non-fiction based on facts. Ito lang po. Creatively presented but they are all based on facts and author's opinion about the subject. Main objectives would be to inform and to persuade. Could be in biographies, articles from textbooks, magazines and newspapers, just like LitHub. Ayan po, ang ating for number 2. And, balik po tayo sa number 3. What are the different 21st century literary genres? Okay, ano po yun? We have the doodle fiction, graphic novels, manga, what else? Digifiction, illustrated novels. We have, text talk novels, don't forget, blog and hyper poetry. Ayan po. And, Fourth one, what are the common characteristics? Pabalikan lang po natin yung ina natin kanina. And the common characteristics of modern literary genres. Common characteristics would be they all employ technology, okay? And they all employ, almost all of them employ the use of the internet or websites in the internet. Of course, technology again. And number 5, what is the difference between conventional and modern literary genres? Okay? Again, conventional can be in the form of printed materials, while modern literary genres employ the use of technology and the use of internet. So that sums up our tutorial for today. Week 2, 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world. Maraming salamat po sa mga nanatili, parents, learners, teachers, and everybody. I hope I was able to provide a bridge somehow for this part of your module. Now, this is again your tutor Dick saying, keep reading, keep loving, and always keep right. To God be the glory po, and magandang hapon po sa ating lahat.
Sigurado ako na marami ka na namang natutuhan sa ating ETUlay tutorial session ngayong araw. Tandaan, ito ay hindi lamang para sa ating mga mag-aaral, kundi pati rin sa ating mga minamahal na guro at mga magulang na kaagapay natin para maituloy ang pagkatuto sa kabila ng nararanasang pandemya. Patuloy ding sumubaybay sa DepEd TV para sa mga araling ginawang video episodes. Mapapanood ito mula Lunes hanggang Sabado, alas 7 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng gabi sa inyong mga telebisyon. Abangan bukas mula 1:00 ng tanghali ang iba pang aralin sa ating ETUlay free online tutorial session sa Filipino. I-like and subscribe at manatiling nakasubaybay sa ating ETUlay tutorial session sa DepEd Edtech Unit FB page at Educational Technology Unit channel sa YouTube at sa DepEd Tayo at DepEd Philippines social media accounts. Paalam!